Hatepu, Assalamu alaikum, Namaste Haru Nefer. This is Kasankma Keparu with an exclusive video for my Patreon supporters. And in this video, I want to go over the basics of the I-Ching Oracle. Okay, first off, what is an oracle? An oracle is a system or a divination system that allows you to communicate with Source or God. And that is to get counsel from God that is specifically related to you and how to live your life as an individual. You see, it's not a one-set-all standardized set of religious dogma that has to be applied to everyone. When you are communicating with God through the use of an oracle, or if you're going to a diviner who will use an oracle to give you the counsel that you need, you are getting personalized instruction on what to do for a very specific situation. And these oracles were practiced by our ancestors in Africa, Europe, and in China. And this is where the great I-Ching oracle comes from. I have a copy here. This is the William Baines version that we'll be using, their translation from the ancient text. So our ancient ancestors in China during the very early dynasties would use tortoise shells or Yahweh sticks to divine, meaning to get the answers that they needed to questions. So it's very similar to getting a tarot reading done, meaning you would go before a diviner, and you know how they would like shuffle the cards, and you would pose your question, and they would lay the cards out, and depending upon the spread, they could give you some instruction on how to handle the situation. Now, unlike tarot, the I-Ching is a very high spiritual divination system. So it's not here to give you predictions or outcomes of the future, but to give you instructional advice on how to live a very spiritual life and how to deal with things from a spiritual perspective. Yes, the I-Ching can be used to inquire about outcomes, but that's not its primary function. And one of the things that you should also realize about the I-Ching is that it had many different authors that contributed to it. Some say it was Confucius that was one of the contributing writers to the I-Ching. But the history goes back so much so that we're not really sure of who were the contributors to it. So let me start off by explaining a little more about how this divination system works and why you should use it in your life. You know, I remember when I was first looking for a spiritual system to practice, one of the criteria that I had was that it had to have its own divination system. And if it didn't, I wasn't interested in that, because so many people in our world, the Western world, the religious Western world, are going off their own ideas and beliefs upon things. And you don't know how things will really transpire. And your thinking is very limited. You see, God, Neter, or Source, can see the bigger picture, where you're only limited to the here and now. This is why an oracle can really tell you what's going to happen down the road. It has a wide perspective, and it goes beyond time and space. So it can really give you correct advice. And when you follow it, you can be rest assured that you will meet with success. And many times the oracle may say something you don't like maybe you may be infatuated with a person or in love with them, and the oracle said that is not the best person that you should marry, that you should wait till another person comes along, but you're so wrapped up in your emotions that you really want to get together with this individual. This is why the ruling elite in this Western world got rid of the oracle system, and they've spent a lot of time and money in mass media propaganda to put these systems down, because if these systems were in place, we would be able to oust anyone in office. The oracle system would tell us if someone running for president was a person of high moral caliber, or if a preacher was somebody you should follow. The oracles would tell you that. And in ancient culture, the oracles were used in the court system to determine the guilt or innocence of a person, and also to instruct about what type of punishment or justice should be instituted. So that's just a little bit of background in history. Now, when you're working with the I-Ching, and I hope that we'll be doing some more classes on this, there, as I mentioned before, there were different ways of divining using tortoise shells, Yahweh sticks. But the most recent that has come into play are the Chinese coins. So you would work with 3 Chinese coins. And if you're not able to get these coins, you can use pennies. They can substitute rather nicely. Now, I'm not going to go into how you toss the coins, and depending on if they're heads or tails, how to interpret the coins. We'll save that for another video. But for now, I want to talk about one of the more prominent aspects of the I-Ching, and that is basically the trigrams and the hexagrams. So basically, you would go before a diviner. The diviner would throw the Chinese coins out, and depending on how they land, you would get a line. Now, a line could be, for example, this would be considered male, and this would be considered female, going back to the yin and yang principle, the yin and yang principle. So you would throw these coins at least 6 times to build a hexagram. But what composes a hexagram is a trigram. So when you throw in the coins, you're going to get what we call as a trigram. Okay? And that's, for example, that's a trigram. Now, because you have to throw these coins 6 times, you may need to continue until you reach the point of getting a full trigram. And that's, for example, if we were to throw the coins and we came up with this hexagram. And this is what we call, the Chinese name for this is Qian, all right? And this is known as the creative force or the creative power of God, okay? And this is also known as a male hexagram, okay? And this male hexagram is actually composed of 3 trigrams. So you have the top trigram, the bottom trigram, and in between, if we're counting the 1, 2, 3, and then you have, this is the middle trigram. So it's composed of 3 trigrams. Now, when you get this trigram, more than likely you'll get what we call as a stressed line. And that is something where the I-Ching wants you to pay particular attention to a certain line. And that will be symbolized by placing a dot next to the line. Now, each line has consult for you. So it has a Chinese proverb for you. And you can read in the I-Ching. If I were to turn to Qin, I would see 6 lines, each one corresponding to a Chinese proverb. And not that all of these proverbs relate to me, it's only the one here with the dot. So I would pay particularly attention to, and of course these all have positions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, and this trigram is actually the first, this hexagram is really the first hexagram in the I-Ching. So the counsel for me, and the question that I posed, was to look at the first hexagram and the 4th line stressed. So we know the first hexagram is Qin, and the 4th line stress. And this one talks about wavering flight over the depths, no blame. And I'll read this to you just so you get an example, an understanding of how the proverb goes. It says, a place of transition has been reached, and free choice can enter in. A twofold possibility is presented to the great man. He can soar to the heights and play an important role in the world, or he can withdraw into solitude and develop himself. He can go the way of the hero or that of the holy sage who seeks seclusion. There is no general law to say which of the 2 paths is right. Each one in this situation must make a choice, a free choice, according to the inner law of his being. If the individual acts consistently and is true to himself, he will find the way that is appropriate for him. This way it is right for him and without blame. So in this particular instance, if I asked about a question, like for example, if I had a choice between 2 jobs, the I-Ching is saying you can take either job. Either job will work for you. And it's depending upon, how you're feeling right now inside, and allow that intuitive feeling or knowledge to make the decision. So the I Ching is kind of sanctioning and saying you can go left or you can go right. So that is a basic idea of how the I Ching oracle works. And as you see, it's very specific advice. I'm not turning to Psalms chapter 8, verse 33, where everybody gets to read that and it applies to everybody equally. No, I'm getting specific advice for a specific situation I inquired about. And that's what makes this a beautiful divination system, and why it was the Chinese sages, the Chinese masters, who in their wisdom put it together. I mean, they went into deep meditation state, accessed the Akashic records, and from that pulled down this divination system that we now have today in our modern society. So I hope to be doing more videos like this one to give you more insight into the I Ching, because there's so much depth and breadth to this. We can do volumes and volumes of videos just on this divination system. So this is Kisank Ma Keperu, son of Maat and Tahuti. My aunt is the beautiful goddess Hedaru Hathor. Until my next video, Amun Ra.